What if the objections you dread on cold calls were actually the secret to booking more qualified meetings? Hey, it's Cole from Prospio. Our team has made hundreds of thousands of cold calls. And what we've learned is that objection handling is the one skill that decides whether a prospect gets hooked or hangs up. In this video, I'll show you 3 simple steps to turn almost any objection into a real conversation. Then, I'll apply it to 5 cold call objections you're guaranteed to face, so you'll know exactly what to say the next time you hear them. Ready to get started? Let's dive in. All right, so the first thing you need to understand is that most cold call objections have nothing to do with you or your offer. They're just a knee-jerk reaction to being interrupted. So instead of trying to argue with the prospect, we follow a 3-step process to overcome those objections and move the conversation forward. Step 1 is to acknowledge and agree with the objection. The goal here is to try to lower their guard and avoid creating conflict, so they're more likely to listen instead of being in that fight or flight mode. Step 2 is to incentivize them to talk. You don't have enough context yet, so incentivizing them to open up is your next best bet. Use phrases like, just so we don't call you again, or just so we're not wasting your time. Then ask a simple, no pressure question. Something like, well, is it because you're currently doing X, or you're just not focused on Y at the moment? And finally, step 3 is to move the conversation forward. Once they respond, dig a bit deeper to uncover a real problem. Don't pitch or push for a meeting right away. Be patient. Once they flag a potential problem worth exploring, that's when you ask for the meeting. Next, let's go through 5 of the most common objections and apply these steps. All right, so 33% of all the objections we've received have actually been situational objections. These objections are based on the prospect's current circumstances, not your product or offer itself. In other words, it's not a hard no, it's more of a not right now. These objections usually sound like, I'm too busy, this isn't a priority, or we don't have the budget. So let's tailor our 3 steps to each of these objections. If the prospect says, I'm too busy, I would just simply agree and say, yeah, no worries, I know your time is valuable. Then I would incentivize them to talk by following up with something like, just so I don't disrupt you again at a bad time, would you prefer me calling you back tomorrow? Or could I take 20 seconds now and then let you decide whether it's even worth the callback? If they say call back tomorrow, then schedule a callback. If they say you've got 20 seconds, move the conversation forward with a problem-inducing insight. Something like, okay, great. Well, I was on your Google page and noticed a bunch of negative reviews. Many of the companies we work with face the same challenge before coming to us to address these reviews so they can win back customer trust and grow their base. I'm curious, have these negative reviews affected your business at all? Once prospects start seeing the problem, then you can go into your value proposition and ask for that meeting. Next, let's say a prospect says this isn't a priority. I would say, yeah, makes sense. It sounds like you've got a lot going on. But just so I understand your situation better, when you say this isn't a priority, do you mean it's not a priority right now? Or is XYZ something you'll never care about? If the prospect says, no, we know we need to focus on this, then now is your chance to move the conversation forward with your value proposition. And finally, the we don't have the budget objection. I would say something like, yeah, I appreciate the transparency and it sounds like the budget is a bit tight. But just so I can understand your situation better, is that because you don't have any budget left for this quarter? Or has your team not discussed budgeting for solving XYZ? Now, the second most common objection is, I'm not interested. And it makes up for 22% of the objections we get on cold calls. The key here is to acknowledge what they've said. For example, of course, my apologies. I'm sure you'd probably reach out if you were interested. But just so no one on my team calls you again, is it because you're already working with another vendor to tackle this? Or is it simply not a priority right now? Whatever they respond with, you can move the conversation forward by asking more probing questions about their situation. The next common objection we hear is send me an email, which accounts for 17% of all cold call objections. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can overcome this objection. First scenario is you don't know whether they're a good fit or you're just fishing to get more context. For example, of course, John, I can send you an email right away. But just so this email doesn't miss anything, are you currently focused on X or are you looking to improve Y? Now the prospect will give you their priorities and you can dig deeper to see if you can actually add value with your solution. The second scenario is where you've already done your research and you know they're a strong fit. You just need to overcome this objection so you can get the meeting booked. For example, of course, John, I can send you an email right away. But just to ensure the email is relevant, what kind of details were you hoping to see in this email? At this point, they'll probably say something like, oh, just like whatever you offer, features, pricing, whatever you normally share. This is where you come back with something like, no problem, John, I'll send the info over. That said, we found that emails rarely give the full picture. How about a quick 10-minute chat next Tuesday at 2 p.m. so I can walk you through how this might specifically help you and your business? Would you be opposed to that? Now, the fourth objection is it's not my responsibility. And this one accounts for 13% of all the objections we hear. To be honest, we rarely ever get this one because we always try to call decision makers. However, the bigger the company, you'll start to see different departments, roles, and it's actually quite difficult to pinpoint responsibilities. So if you get this objection, here's how to handle it. If a prospect says it's not my responsibility, you can say, totally fair. My apologies. I probably didn't get a chance to talk to the right person yet. But just so I don't call the wrong person again, do you know if Jane is the right person for this, or is there someone better related I should talk to? This is where you can name drop another decision maker from the company, and most of the time the prospects will actually give you the correct decision maker's name. From here, you'd say, okay, great. Thanks for pointing me in the right direction. But just one last thing. Would you mind if I mentioned to Jane that you and I had this conversation? I'm not here to ask for a referral, but I'd just like to make sure that Jane knows I'm not calling out of nowhere. You see, most prospects will typically give their permission here, which gives you the perfect opportunity to make your next call feel more like a warm outreach. And finally, we've got the we're already working with another vendor objection. This makes up for the remaining 8% of total objections. Here's how we like to handle these ones. Oh, ABC Corp. Yeah, they have a solid API. Love their support team. But hey, just so we don't bother you again about this, does that mean you're 100% satisfied with everything they're doing for you right now? Or do you feel like some features are lacking? If the prospect says something like, well, we're mostly satisfied with them, but I will admit the system can be slow at times, that is where you can come back with something like this. Okay, fair. Totally makes sense. Actually, other teams we've spoken with have said the exact same thing. Mostly happy, but the performance issues started to bottleneck once they scaled. Now, I know you'll probably be sticking with ABC Corp for now, which is fair, but would it be helpful if I quickly showed you how others have solved that speed issue? Just so you've got a benchmark in case it ever turns into a bigger problem? It's simple. You give their current vendor a nod, spot the cracks, and plant your faster fix in their back pocket so they'll think of you down the road when the slowdowns start to sting. And that's how we handle the 5 most common cold call objections using a simple 3-step process. If you found this video helpful, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more cold call breakdowns just like this. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.